Good afternoon and good morning to our West Coast listeners. My name is Juan Thomas. I have the honor of serving as chair of the ABA Civil Rights and Social Justice section. And I want to welcome my friend, Craine, today, and my new friend, Wendy Richards. Khyla is the Deputy Legal Director for the Michigan Department of State, and Wendy is a pro bono counsel at the law firm of Miller Canfield in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Juan.
Great. Thank you for being here today. Khyla, I want to start with you.
All right.
Tell me all about the Michigan Restoration Clinic.
Yeah, so the Michigan Road to Restoration Clinic is a partnership. It's one of the best examples of a private-public partnership that I can think of. It is designed to help our residents understand what they need to do to get their driver's license restored. In 2021, the Michigan legislature passed a couple of bills, one called the Clean Slate to Drive bill, which eliminated fines and fees for some of residents. It converted moving violations into civil infractions, and it paved the way for many Michiganders to be able to instantly get their driver's license back, pay fines or fees to get their driver's license back, or eliminated some of the barriers, but not all of them, to get their driver's license back. It impacts about 350,000 Michiganders throughout our state. And so we are bringing our staff here at the Michigan Secretary of State's office, along with private counsel, nonprofit partners, to help our residents understand exactly step by step on an individualized basis what they need to do to get their driver's license restored. And we've been operating now for, we came up with the idea, me and Wendy, about 2 years ago, but we've had the clinics for about a year and a half, and it's been a great success thus far.
Now, are these clinics all around the state of Michigan, or are they centrally located like in Lansing or Detroit, or are they throughout the state?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have been all throughout the state. We've been in 11 cities and 18 clinics since November of 2021. We've been thus far, we've only been in the Lower Peninsula. As you know, Michigan, we have 2 peninsulas. Yes. But this year, we're super excited to be able to go to see our Michiganders in the Upper Peninsula and talk to them about their road as well.
Now, is this program unique to Michigan, or are you aware of other programs similar around the country?
Yeah, we're blessed that it is unique. From our research, we kind of came up with this idea as not only just kind of like the idea, but also the private partnership means of creating this idea. But we're so happy to know that some lawyers in Hawaii liked what we were doing. We kind of talk about it on LinkedIn pretty often. And some of our colleagues in Hawaii picked this up and did a clinic in November of 2022. We've talked to some folks in Georgia who are also thinking about doing this. So we're excited that it is spreading across the country, but we're proud that it did begin here in Michigan.
Well, we're glad that you took the leadership to make this happen, and hopefully other states will model the program around the country. Wendy, let me ask you, one of the themes, or the theme this year for our Civil Rights and Social Justice section is economic justice. And we're focusing on the aspects of economic justice, how it impacts not only different communities, but how lawyers can be engaged in the work for economic justice and creating more economic just systems. You serve as a pro bono legal counsel to the Road to Restoration clinics throughout Michigan. Could you kind of connect what you're doing to economic justice in the context of what you're doing in Michigan?
Without a doubt. I mean, in a state like Michigan, we're the home of, we're the auto hub, right? We're the home where we put the nation on wheels. This is like the home of like Motor City.
Right.
Basically, in order to really to live successfully, to be able to have a job, to take care of your family, to get to school, so much of it is really heavily car dependent. Now we do have public transportation, but it's not really set up to be very simple here. And so in order to just have those basic, functions of life, kind of met, it really is really helpful to be able to have access to a car. Not having access to a car, having your license suspended or somehow taken away makes it incredibly difficult to pull yourself out of those holes. And this is an issue that's compounded because many of these infractions are due to the inability to pay fines and fees. Mm-hmm. So it's one that's disproportionately affecting poor communities, right? And so in order to get yourself out of that hole, you'd have to violate the rules to drive to a job, to potentially get, another ticket, to not be able to drive. Right. So it's a really kind of perpetuating issue. And to kind of stop that and reverse it is huge. And then to allow people those opportunities to have those jobs, get to school, take care of their kids, take care of their families. It really is an amazing way to affect economic justice in a community like ours. Now, places that do have better public transportation potentially also have issues with, distance. So let's say you have a city that most working people can't live in the city because it's too expensive and they have to live far away. You also have those barriers with public transportation being too difficult to actually get to your job. And so even though in Michigan it's resonant because of our dependence on sort of cars and the car culture, it really is applicable to other communities where people need to get to work by driving. So yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an economic justice issue. And it's also one where you see from the employer side, right? People wanting to have employees who have licenses for various reasons. And one of our partners is DTE Energy, looking for people who can drive for them to take care of their needs, and the inability to find, commercial drivers because of this barrier. So you're kind of seeing it from both sides, the employer and the employee side. So, yeah.
How many people have you all been able to help and serve in this program since it started? I think you said in 2021.
Right. We did a pilot in November 2021 and started in earnest in March of 2022. So we've seen over 4,000 Michiganders across our state, which is huge, right? We started, it really was like we're day one of Women's History Month. And it was 5 women that kind of came together from various sectors to put this together. And so we started from that and have just blossomed out. But like I said, we've met 4,000 Michiganders across the state. We reviewed 1,700 of the folks that saw us between July and November of last year, and about 120 of them now have a valid license. It's a little bit north of that as we keep trying to update our records. But it's a pathway, right? Because there are some people who still have to pay those fines and fees. And as Wendy was saying, they compound. So it's not just that you just get a ticket, right? Most people, but not all, can pay a ticket. But if I could not pay that ticket because I needed to pay rent or whatever, and I got another ticket, it compounds. We have seen people that have $5,000, $10,000 or more dollars of fines or fees that they have to pay before they're eligible to get the license restored. So while we've seen about 120 or so folks successfully back on the road, many more have a little bit more to do, but we continue to work with them and follow up with them. And we now know that we have a lot of nonprofit partners that want to work with this community to help them get further down the pathway.
So how does the program work specifically? If I have $5,000 worth of fines but need to get my license, how does the program actually help me get my license back? Does it waive the fines? Does it reduce them? Am I on a payment plan? How does it actually work?
Sure. Wendy, you want to take that one? I can't.
Well, sure. And you can potentially try to petition a court to at the time to see if there's some kind of way around it. But often the people who are coming to the clinic are kind of past that. So sometimes we have partners who are willing to help offset some of those fines and fees. And that's really gracious of them, but not all the time. And so often it is difficult for the people who come into the clinic to be able to kind of pay all of those fines and fees, and it can take some time. But to the extent you can try to get something from the court where there can be some sort of payment plan or alternative, sometimes that's available. It would be great to be able to have more opportunities like that, because again, this is a really crushing burden on many people.
And then, so like when somebody comes through the door at the clinic, they're met with our staff. They typically will bring their driving record. And then if not, we have a mobile office with the Secretary of State that can do basically any transaction that you could do at a brick and mortar Secretary of State's office.
Right.
And that travels around with us, and they can provide their driving record. And then they will sit with our staff to go over on a one-on-one basis to see what their driver's record is and what is their pathway. And then if they would like to, they can meet with some of the volunteer attorneys that Wendy is able to recruit to talk even more about their driver record, but also if they have open warrants, other things that they need to do with the court in order to settle any past violations. Because one of the things that we try to do, one, is that we try to create a safe space for our residents, because many of our residents do not want to go down to the district court and figure out what they need to do to get their license back, because they're afraid that they're going to get arrested.
Right.
And so we try to make a safe space, but bring as many of the components to bear right there at the clinic. We're so grateful that the district courts are actually coming to us now and want to work with our residents. And so some of them, like Wendy said, will set up a payment plan for those residents. But one of the interesting things, Juan, is that we're trying to make sure that if a resident is maybe on governmental assistance, we're not providing too much assistance to them that would knock them out of something else, right? So if they get too much assistance, it may be qualified as income, and then that may disqualify them for other services that they need for their lives. And so our partner at DTE is working with some of their outside counsel to look at the laws around that, to figure out how can we be of best service to those residents, but not messing up other things that they have going on in their day-to-day lives. So what seemed to be a very simple thing, like let's just bring folks to bear and help them out, is very complex and intricate because of the laws of our state, but also because of the federal laws and regulations that impact some of these folks that are disproportionately having a difficult time to be able to get their license restored.
For those who may be new to this conversation, what does DTE stand for? You mentioned DTE.
Detroit Energy, right? Isn't that
Yeah, right. So they're an energy utility company,
Okay.
major companies in Detroit, or I mean in the state of Michigan. So
Okay. All right. Yeah. So Wendy, tell me this, how many lawyers work with the program throughout the state? Do you know?
Oh, I mean, we've had hundreds volunteer, which is really wonderful. And one of the things that we found from working in like the working with legal aid on the other side before we had this kind of systemic project, is that a lot of attorneys are afraid to take on driver's license restoration cases because they're unfamiliar with this area of the law. It, typically isn't terribly lucrative, and a lot of people don't kind of focus on it. But quite frankly, it's one that's so beneficial for so many people. And so what we really wanted to do was train up volunteers throughout the state, especially in those areas that didn't have a strong pro bono network or maybe are far from major markets. Right. And so part of this project is intended to train lawyers as well to become advocates and assistants in this process, once the clinics are gone, right? So it leaves the community, their work continues and they can continue to help. So yeah, we have hundreds so far. We're going to continue to recruit more. I mean, I would imagine, I would bet maybe 300 by the end of the year.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. Now,
Michigan, like my home state of Illinois, there's like one major city in the state. And sometimes we have found in Illinois, it's difficult getting lawyers to serve or service more rural parts of the state. Do you have that same challenge in Michigan, like outside of the Detroit metro area and outside of Lansing, kind of the two metro hubs there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, so, Khyla mentioned the UP, the Upper Peninsula, and there are counties there where really, a handful of attorneys in the entire county, and that includes the judge and the prosecutor. Really a legal desert, if you will. And so those communities, trying to reach them in a way that's helpful is really a part of this process. So yeah.
We have counties in Illinois where there's less than like 5 lawyers in the county, in like what we call downstate Illinois.
Yeah. And you would be surprised how long Michigan is. Like you look at Michigan on the map, and it doesn't seem like it's that large geographically, right? But getting from Detroit to maybe Marquette is like a 12-hour trek.
Really?
Right?
Wow.
driving. Yeah. And so if you're trying to bring in also like it's a different culture, right? The UP has its own unique culture from us here in the Detroit Metroplex. And so you want to have attorneys that are from the area too, that can speak how the folks in that area speak. They know the culture, they know their residents, their neighbors, versus us just kind of coming in and, you know, doing what we do. So it builds community as well, being able to have homegrown attorneys if you can. But to Wendy's point and to your point, you know, once you get outside of the, you know, major markets, it is difficult for us. Yeah.
Khyla, are you all tracking in the state in terms of impact you're having? Are you tracking the racial background of the people you're serving or the income levels that you're servicing? Is that data being tracked, or is that important?
So it's definitely important. But because of how we do data here in the state of Michigan, we can't track it as well as maybe other states. So in Michigan, we don't actually collect racial data on our driver's licenses. And so we can't, when we go back, track that. But anecdotally, obviously, we have a large Black population in the southeast corner of our state. And as you travel north in our state, it becomes more white, more indigenous. As you travel towards the west, towards you all in Chicago, it also has a Latino population, a growing African immigrant population. And so we have a lot of differing cultures as you move throughout our state. But what I have seen is that as we get more rural, we see an increase in the DUI, driving under the influence or driving while intoxicated types of issues that we have to face at the clinics, versus in the more urban areas where we see fines and fees. But in both, and Wendy, I would be interested to hear what you have to say about this as well. I think it's both of those areas have a income issue. Like, even though they're facing different violations, they're still income-based issues as well, as along with a racial component that you see just because of where people live.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, rural poor, still an issue. I mean, it's an incredibly, you know, incredibly difficult. And again, you're having that problem of not having attorneys nearby. I mean, even with some of the DUI, OWI type offenses, you didn't have an attorney to help you argue, you know, you needed one, right? And the process for getting your license back with that sometimes could benefit from having, certainly from drug counseling, but it's not inexpensive to get the screening that you need and all of that. As well as potentially having an attorney to help you in your restoration hearing, get your license restored. So you're seeing those issues as well up in the more rural northern areas too. But it has been fascinating to see how different the issues are depending on what part of the state. I mean, it's pretty dramatic, you know, 90% maybe dealing with OWI or DUI issues in certain parts, and where the other is probably the same with fines and fees, often related to like lack of insurance too, because like, compounding insurance is expensive. You have insurance, and then you get a ticket, and it just builds. So
right. Wendy, how would a lawyer get involved in the program if they wanted to sign up or participate?
Great question. So the Department of State has put together a wonderful website all about the road to restoration clinics. And
that website address is
Khyla.
Michigan.gov/road to restoration.
All right. Go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, I think that's what it's fantastic. So there's a button there. You can click volunteer attorney sign up, I think is what it says. Click on there. You can choose what clinics you want to sign up for. We have several already listed. We have some that are, you know, dates to be finalized, but are coming. And we have great training. We have recorded trainings. We have written materials, and then we have experts on site the day of the clinic. So we have people like me or Ravina Mustafa, who works with Detroit Justice Center, or others who are frequent volunteers who can help those who haven't, you know, been through the process. We also have the Attorney General's office there. They can't answer questions specifically, you know, to the actual individual, but general type questions. You can ask them kind of general legal, you know, issue
Right.
questions, and they'll like kind of respond in the kind of abstract, which is really helpful. And then obviously the Secretary of State's office is there en masse. So any questions like technical issues, you have just reams of experts ready to help.
And one, I don't want to gloss over this, and Wendy is very gracious, but Wendy and Rubina from the Detroit Justice Center, along with our colleagues from Lakeshore Legal here in Michigan, curated these trainings. So they put them together, they continue to refine these trainings, and they have like 3-inch ring binders full of information that they curate, copy, bring. And they have donated in time, resources, well over $200,000 collectively to help Michigan residents figure out how to get their license back. So I just want to make sure that I pause to say thank you to our legal colleagues throughout the state that have been so vital to making sure that these clinics are successful.
And I also want to put on my NBA hat for a moment, Khyla, and make sure that our friends at the Wolverine Bar sign up to do this work in Detroit as well. And you and I have several friends that come out of that bar association.
Yes, June 21st, we'll be back in Detroit. So Wolverine Bar, Straker Bar, we hope to see you there.
That's right, that's right. Let me ask this question before we conclude. Can a lawyer help in this clinic virtually, or is all the work in person?
We're trying to work that out. That has been the lingering thing that we've been trying to work out over the past year. So I'm not going to say no. I'm saying we're going to work it out and figure it out, particularly as we head up north. But so stay tuned for more information on that. Okay.
All right. So as we conclude, I wanted to always give our guests an opportunity to kind of share a bit about themselves. We are more than just lawyers, even though that is our work, our passion, and our calling in some cases. So I'm going to start with Wendy. Wendy, what's the last book you read, or what book are you reading now?
I'm reading Revolutionary, Samuel Adams. It's a biography about Samuel Adams by Stacy Schiff, I think is her name.
All right.
Fascinating.
Great. Khyla?
I'm reading First Lady Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry, and also trying to read more about Reconstruction by David Blight. So working on that.
Two good books. And Khyla, what do you do for fun?
That's a great question. I like to bake. So when I can, I do that. And being back here at home in Ann Arbor, trying to relearn my hometown as an adult. So that's also been interesting.
I'm sure a lot's changed, but lots has also stayed the same, I'm sure.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Wendy, what do you do for fun?
I like to dance. And I'm really bad.
Any favorite music?
No, I don't know.
Okay. And then if you could wake up tomorrow and not be a lawyer, what would you be and why? Wendy, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I would love to be Terry Gross from Fresh Air. That would be my dream job. So
that's a great job. Khyla?
Like to be a travel blogger. I really like to travel. And there's so many places that I have not been. So I would like to get paid to travel and then talk about it.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have a lot in common, the three of us.
Yeah.
I like to eat desserts while I'm traveling, and when I travel, I like to dance. So, you know.
There you go.
All right.
Well, I want to bring you something the next time I see you.
I hope, please do, please do. I want to thank my friend Khyla Craine, who I've known for years. Khyla has been a leader not only in the state of Michigan, but also in the NAACP, in the National Bar Association, where she's a past chair of our Young Lawyers Division. I also want to thank my newest friend, Wendy Richards, for the work you're doing with the state of Michigan in this Restoration Clinic program. And I'm sure you are doing amazing work in our legal community throughout Detroit and Michigan. And so we thank both of you. And please tune in next week for another edition of our Civil Rights and Social Justice Chair Chat. Khyla, Wendy, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Juan.